Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy History Channel. Tonight, we step into the remarkable world of medieval markets. For many people in the Middle Ages, the market was the most important place outside the home. It was where food became survival. It was where law became visible. It was where a person could learn what was happening far beyond their own street. A medieval market was never just a place to buy things. It could shape a town's future. It could make a lord richer. It could turn a traveling merchant into a trusted name. It could also expose a cheat before a watching crowd. Behind every stall was a world of rules. Behind every price was a struggle for fairness. Behind every journey was a risk that made trade feel bold. Tonight, we will explore how these markets worked. We will see why they mattered so deeply. We will uncover the surprising power hidden inside ordinary exchange. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, there's nothing you need to do but relax. Let your shoulders soften. Allow your breathing to slow. And as the day begins to fade away, join me as we explore this fascinating world together. Let's begin. Medieval markets could turn quiet villages into crowded temporary towns. On ordinary days, many settlements moved at the pace of fieldwork, church bells, and household routine. Then market day arrived, and the whole place changed character. People came in from farms with baskets, carts, and animals. Travelers looked for food, repairs, or a safe place to rest. Craftspeople unfolded boards and cloths to turn a street into a row of shops. The sound of bargaining filled spaces that might have been nearly empty the day before. A village did not need stone walls or grand buildings to feel important for a few hours. It only needed permission to gather buyers and sellers at the same time. That gathering made the place useful in a new way. It became a meeting point for the surrounding countryside. A person might arrive with eggs and leave with iron nails, a new rumor, and a stronger sense of belonging to a wider world. A royal charter could make a market legally powerful overnight. A market was not just a crowd of people exchanging goods. In many parts of medieval Europe, it needed a formal grant from a ruler or lord before it could operate with full protection. A charter could give a town the right to hold trade on a certain day, collect payments, enforce order, and defend its privileges against rivals. That piece of authority changed the value of a place almost immediately. Land near the market became more attractive. Inns had more reason to open. Craftsmen had more reason to settle. Buyers trusted the gathering because it was recognized by law. This mattered in a world where trade depended heavily on protection and reputation. A charter could also become a weapon in local politics. Towns guarded these rights carefully because losing them meant losing traffic, income, and influence. What looked like a simple permission slip could become the foundation of urban growth. The Champagne fairs helped connect Northern Europe with Mediterranean trade. In the High Middle Ages, the fairs of Champagne became some of the most important commercial meeting points in Western Europe. Their location was unusually useful. Merchants from the north could bring woolen cloth and other goods. Traders linked to Italian and Mediterranean networks could arrive with silk, spices, and luxury items from much farther away. The result was not merely local shopping. It was a carefully timed exchange system that helped move wealth across regions. The Counts of Champagne supported the fairs because safety and order made traders more willing to come. That protection turned commerce into something larger than a row of stores. Contracts were made. Credit was arranged. Goods changed hands in ways that connected distant economies. A buyer might never see the sea and still purchase something that had crossed it. These fairs remind us that medieval Europe was not closed or still. It was threaded by movement. Some fairs attracted merchants from hundreds of miles away. A great medieval fair could pull people across distances that felt enormous at the time. Roads were slow, weather was uncertain, and travel could be expensive. Yet merchants still made the journey because a successful fair offered something rare. It brought many buyers into one place at a predictable moment. Traders could arrive with cloth, spices, leather, wax, metal goods, or horses, knowing that others had planned around the same calendar. The journey itself required nerve. Goods had to be packed, animals had to be fed, and every delay could cost money. Still, the reward could be worth it. A merchant who sold well at a major fair might settle debts, make contacts, and secure orders for future trade. These gatherings turned distance into opportunity. They allowed products from one region to appear in another, long before modern transport made such movement ordinary. For a few crowded days, the road led toward possibility. Market bells told everyone exactly when trading could begin. In a busy marketplace, timing mattered, because fairness depended on it. If sellers opened too early, favored buyers might take the best goods before everyone else had a chance. If trading began in confusion, disputes could follow before the day had properly started. Bells helped solve that problem. A ringing signal told the crowd that the protected time for business had begun. It gave the market a public rhythm that everyone could hear, including people who could not read written rules. Sound became a form of authority. The bell did not simply announce activity. It helped create trust by placing all sellers under the same starting moment. In a society where clocks were uncommon, shared signals mattered deeply. Bells shaped work, worship, curfews, and trade. On market day, their sound could change the whole mood of a town. Waiting ended. Bargaining began. The official day of exchange had opened. Bread prices were controlled so townspeople could afford daily food. Bread was not a luxury in medieval towns. It was the center of the everyday diet for many households. Because of that, its price and quality were too important to leave completely to chance. Authorities often used regulations to connect the cost of bread to the cost of grain. When grain became expensive, a loaf might become smaller rather than simply become unaffordable. This system aimed to prevent bakers from profiting unfairly during scarcity. It also helped reduce anger among people who depended on bread every day. A town that failed to manage food prices could face unrest quickly. The rules were practical, but they also reveal something powerful about medieval life. Government was not only about kings, battles, and taxes. It could reach into the size of a loaf on a household table. For ordinary people, justice could be measured in bread that was honest enough to feed a family. Inspectors punished sellers who used false weights or short measures. Trust was fragile in a marketplace filled with strangers. A buyer might not know the person selling grain, wool, spices, or cloth. That made measurement one of the foundations of fair trade. If a seller used a hollowed weight, a shortened yard, or a dishonest scoop, the cheat could be repeated all day. Medieval towns knew this danger well. Officials checked weights and measures because every small fraud damaged confidence in the market itself. Punishment was often public because shame had real force. A dishonest tool could be seized, broken, or displayed as a warning. The message was clear. Trade could only thrive when people believed the exchange was real. A market was not simply noise and movement. It was a system of shared expectations. Honest measurement allowed a stranger to buy without feeling helpless. In that sense, a balanced scale was more than a tool. It was a promise. Market courts settled disputes before traveling merchants left town. Trade created arguments as naturally as it created profit. A horse might be unsound. A bolt of cloth might be misrepresented. A debt might be denied once the goods had changed hands. Waiting months for justice made little sense when many traders were only passing through. Special market courts answered that problem by moving quickly. They heard complaints while witnesses were still present and while the people involved could still be found. This speed mattered enormously. A traveling merchant could not pause an entire journey for a slow legal process. The court made commerce safer by showing that disputes had a place to go. It also protected the reputation of the fair or town. Buyers and sellers were more willing to return when they knew arguments would not simply vanish into confusion. In a world of muddy roads and uncertain journeys, fast justice was part of the infrastructure of trade. Many medieval towns grew rich because their markets were protected. A successful market needed more than goods. It needed confidence. Traders wanted to know that their animals would not be stolen, their packs would not be seized unfairly, and their agreements would be respected. Towns that could offer this kind of protection had a major advantage. People came back because the place felt reliable. With each return, more money moved through inns, workshops, stables, and households. Local authorities benefited as well, since trade brought fees and influence. Protection could mean guards, legal privileges, safe roads nearby, or recognized market rules. The important point was that commerce followed security. A town that became known as a safe place to buy and sell could grow beyond its original size. Its market turned into an engine that fed other parts of urban life. Wealth did not appear by accident. It gathered where people believed they could trade without being ruined by disorder. A single market day could bring news, money, food, and gossip together. For people who lived in scattered farms or small settlements, market day was a rare opening into a larger world. It was practical, of course. People needed flour, salt, tools, cloth, or livestock. Yet the social value was just as strong. A person could hear which roads were safe, who had married, which lord was demanding payment, or what rumor had arrived from the nearest city. Coins changed hands beside conversation. Food was bought while news was tested. A stranger's story might travel home in a farmer's memory as surely as goods traveled in a basket. This made the market one of the great communication centers of medieval life. It connected households that otherwise might remain separated by work and distance. Before printed newspapers reached ordinary readers, speech carried the world from mouth to mouth. A market day did not only supply the body. It refreshed the mind with information. Weekly markets often happened on the same weekday for generations. A regular market day gave structure to the surrounding countryside. People could plan around it with confidence. Farmers knew when to bring surplus produce. Craftspeople knew when to prepare stock. Buyers knew when the greatest choice would appear. Over time, that rhythm became part of local memory. A child might grow up knowing that a certain road filled with carts every Thursday, just as their parents and grandparents had known it. This kind of continuity mattered in a world where most work followed seasonal cycles. The weekly market offered a smaller rhythm inside the year. It also helped neighboring markets avoid direct competition. If one town traded on Monday and another on Wednesday, sellers could move between them. The calendar became a map of opportunity. Regularity made trade less random and more dependable. A repeated weekday could bind a region together through habit, expectation, and the steady movement of ordinary goods. Towns needed permission before opening an official public market. A crowd of sellers could gather informally, but an official market was different. It carried legal recognition, and that made it valuable enough to be controlled. Permission helped rulers and lords decide where trade should concentrate. It also prevented too many markets from weakening one another. A new public market could draw customers away from an older one, so the right to open one was often contested. This was not just bureaucracy. It was economic power. Once permission was granted, a town could advertise a dependable place of exchange. It could attract traders who wanted lawful protection. It could build its identity around a regular gathering. Without permission, sellers might face penalties or lack the protections that made larger trade possible. The rule shows how closely commerce and authority were connected. In medieval life, even the right to gather in public and sell goods could be a privilege worth fighting for. Lords earned money from store fees, tolls, and market fines. A market could be a source of steady income for whoever controlled it. Sellers might pay for the space where they stood. Travelers might pay when bringing goods through a gate or across a bridge. Anyone who broke trading rules might owe a fine. These payments could seem small one by one, but together they made a market financially attractive. This helps explain why market rights were so carefully guarded. A lord did not need to sell cloth or grain personally to profit from the business of others. Authority itself generated revenue. Every cart that entered, every stall that opened, and every dispute that ended in punishment could add to local income. That money might support administration, building work, household expenses, or further protection. The arrangement reveals a sharp truth about medieval power. Trade was not separate from lordship. It was one of the ways power became visible in daily life. Churches often hosted markets near feast days and holy celebrations. Religious gatherings could create large crowds, and crowds created opportunities for trade. On important feast days, people traveled to churches, shrines, or local celebrations. Sellers naturally followed because visitors needed food, drink, candles, souvenirs, and other goods. The sacred calendar therefore shaped the commercial calendar. This connection may seem surprising today, but in medieval life, religion and daily economy were closely intertwined. A holy day could also become a trading day because people were already free from ordinary labor. The setting gave markets a special atmosphere. Buyers might come for worship and leave with something useful for the household. Traders might plan journeys around celebrations that promised reliable foot traffic. At times, church authorities benefited from rents or nearby activity. This did not mean every market was disorderly or purely commercial. It meant that devotion drew people together, and wherever people gathered in numbers, exchange became almost unavoidable. Market crosses marked the legal center of many English towns. In many English towns, a cross in the marketplace was more than a religious symbol. It marked a recognized public space where trade, announcements, and civic authority met. People could use it as a meeting point because it stood in the open and was known to everyone. Officials might proclaim rules there. Sellers might gather nearby because the location carried legitimacy. The cross helped turn a broad space into a defined center. In a town without modern signs or street numbering, such landmarks mattered. They told people where the important business of the community happened. The structure also connected commerce with moral order. Trade took place under a symbol that reminded sellers and buyers of honesty, duty, and public judgment. Some crosses were simple. Others were elaborate structures with steps, shelters, or carvings. Whatever their form, they made the marketplace feel anchored. The town's public life had a visible heart. Some medieval streets were named after the goods sold there. Street names can preserve the memory of old marketplaces long after the stalls have vanished. In medieval towns, trades often clustered together because it made business easier and regulations simpler. If many fish sellers, bakers, shoemakers, or metalworkers worked in one area, people began to identify the street by that activity. The name could become so familiar that it outlived the original trade. This gives modern towns a hidden historical record. A street name might quietly reveal where animals were sold, where food was prepared, or where craftsmen once worked shoulder to shoulder. These names were practical rather than decorative. They helped people navigate a crowded town by function. If you needed a certain product, the name pointed you in the right direction. It also shows how deeply work shaped urban identity. Medieval streets were not anonymous corridors. They were known by the labor, smells, sounds, and skills that filled them. Cheapside became one of medieval London's busiest trading streets. The name Cheapside comes from an old word connected with buying and selling. In medieval London, it became one of the great commercial arteries of the city. This was not a quiet row of shops. It was a dense and prestigious trading area where wealth, craft, and urban government pressed close together. Processions passed through it. Important citizens worked near it. Shoppers came because the range of goods and services made the area central to city life. Its importance can still be felt in the names of nearby streets that recall particular trades. Cheapside showed how a market street could become part of the capital's identity. It was not merely a place where goods were exchanged. It was a stage on which London displayed its energy and rank. To stand there in the later Middle Ages was to feel the pulse of a growing city built on commerce. Eastcheap was famous for food sellers and cooked provisions. In medieval London, Eastcheap became strongly associated with the sale of food. Its name points toward trade, and its reputation became tied to everyday appetite. This was where people could find prepared provisions in a city full of workers, travelers, apprentices, and visitors who could not always cook for themselves. Cooked food mattered more than we might assume. Many urban homes had limited cooking space, and some people lived in rented rooms or crowded households. A place where ready food could be bought was therefore essential to the life of the city. Eastcheap's fame also entered English literary memory, which helped fix it in the imagination long after the medieval period. Yet beneath the later stories was a practical reality. Feeding a city required organized supply, skilled preparation, and constant demand. A food market was not just convenient. It was part of the machinery that allowed dense urban life to function. Fishmongers often worked before dawn because fresh fish spoiled quickly. Fresh fish demanded speed. Without modern refrigeration, every hour mattered after a catch was landed or brought upriver. Fishmongers needed to receive, sort, clean, and sell their stock before quality declined. This pushed their work into the earliest part of the day. While many people were still sleeping, fish sellers might already be handling baskets, checking freshness, and preparing for customers who wanted food suitable for household meals or religious fasting days. The trade required more than strong senses. It required timing and trust. Buyers looked for clear eyes, firm flesh, and a smell that signaled freshness rather than decay. Officials also watched the trade because spoiled fish could threaten public health and provoke anger. The result was a business shaped by urgency. A fish stall captured one of the basic challenges of medieval food supply. Nature set the deadline, and the market had to obey it before the sun rose too high. Butchers were pushed towards certain streets because slaughter was messy. Meat was valuable, but preparing it inside a town created serious problems. Slaughter produced blood, offal, hides, bones, noise, and strong smells. If these were handled carelessly, they could foul streets and waterways. Town authorities therefore often tried to control where butchers worked. Keeping them in particular areas made inspection easier and helped limit the spread of waste. It also separated unpleasant work from more delicate trades. This does not mean medieval people were indifferent to dirt. They understood that certain activities could make urban life harder and more dangerous. Butchery required skill, strength, and speed, yet it also forced a town to confront the physical reality behind its food. A neat piece of meat on a stall had begun as a noisy and difficult process. By placing butchers together, towns made a practical compromise. They kept an essential trade close enough to serve customers, but controlled enough to protect the street. Bakers could be fined if their loaves were too light. A loaf in a medieval town was more than food. It was a daily measure of fairness. Because so many people depended on bread, authorities watched bakers with unusual care. The weight of a loaf had to match the official price of grain, and a baker who quietly shaved off a little dough could profit from every customer. That small theft mattered when families lived close to hunger. Officials inspected loaves, tested their size, and punished bakers who failed the standard. The penalties could be humiliating. In some towns, dishonest bread might be displayed in public, or the baker might face a visible punishment that warned every customer. This was not just about one bad loaf. It was about trust in the food supply. Every buyer needed to believe that the bread on the stall was honest. In a world without printed receipts, the weight of bread became a form of public truth. Ale tasters checked brewing quality before ordinary people bought drinks. Ale was a daily drink in much of medieval England, and it was produced in homes, taverns, and small brewing businesses. Because water quality could be uncertain, weak, alcoholic drinks were often part of ordinary life. That made brewing a matter of public concern. Ale tasters were appointed to examine what was being sold. They checked strength, freshness, price, and honesty. Their work protected customers from watered drink, spoiled batches, and unfair dealing. The role could be surprisingly practical. A taster might sample the ale, inspect the measure, and make sure the cellar had not broken local rules. Brewing was also one of the trades where women were especially visible, since many wives and widows brewed for income. A good batch could support a household. A bad one could damage a name. The ale taster stood between private brewing and public trust, making sure that what filled the cup matched what people paid for. Standard weights helped strangers trade without trusting each other blindly. A marketplace brought together people who might never meet again. That made shared standards essential. If a sack of grain, a lump of wax, or a piece of metal could be measured differently by every seller, trade would collapse into suspicion. Official weights created a common language. They allowed two strangers to argue less about the meaning of a quantity and focus more on the price. This was especially important when goods moved between towns, where local customs might differ. A merchant needed confidence that a pound in one place would not become something wildly different in another. Towns often kept official measures for comparison, and traders could be checked against them. The idea may sound simple, but it was quietly revolutionary. It allowed trust to be built into objects. A balanced weight could do what words alone could not. It made commerce possible between people who had no personal bond at all. Some merchants carried their own scales to avoid being cheated. For a traveling merchant, a scale was a kind of shield. It could protect profit in a world where every transaction depended on quantity. When goods were costly, even a small error could mean a serious loss. Spices, silver, dyes, medicines, and fine metals all demanded careful weighing. A dishonest local measure could quietly drain money from a trader's purse. Carrying scales gave merchants a way to test the terms of exchange for themselves. These tools were often portable, with folding arms, small pans, and sets of weights kept in boxes or pouches. Using them also sent a message. The merchant was alert, experienced, and not easily fooled. This mattered in crowded markets where speed and pressure could encourage mistakes. A scale did not remove every risk, but it gave the trader a private standard in a public world. It turned measurement into self-defense and sometimes into survival. Market officials sometimes broke false measures in front of crowds. Public destruction had a purpose. When officials found a dishonest measure, they did not always hide the evidence away in a storeroom. They might break it where people could see. A cracked scoop or smashed weight made the crime easy to understand, even for someone who had not witnessed the sale. It also turned punishment into a lesson. The crowd saw that cheating was not merely a private matter between seller and buyer. It was an attack on the whole market. False measures could make every transaction uncertain. By destroying them openly, officials repaired confidence as much as they punished dishonesty. There was theatre in it, but the theatre had practical value. Medieval justice often worked through visibility. People remembered what they saw in the marketplace. A broken tool became a warning that traveled by word of mouth, and a dishonest seller learned that reputation could be shattered as quickly as wood. A pea-powder court handled fair disputes with remarkable speed. Large fairs created legal problems that ordinary courts could not easily manage. People arrived from distant places, traded quickly, and moved on. If a dispute waited too long, the witnesses might be gone, and the accused person might be on the road. The pea-powder court existed for that fast-moving world. It could hear cases connected with the fair and give judgment before the trading season passed. The matters were often practical. A debt had not been paid. A product was not what was promised. A bargain had been broken in front of witnesses. Speed was the court's strength. Its presence told merchants that they were not entering a lawless crowd. They were entering a protected commercial space with its own urgent machinery of justice. That made fairs more attractive to serious traders. In the middle of noise, bargaining, and movement, the court gave the whole event a backbone of order. The name pea-powder came from traders with dusty feet. The word carries the journey inside it. It comes from an old expression linked to feet covered in dust, a vivid description of merchants and travelers who had walked or ridden long roads to reach a fair. That detail matters because it shows exactly whom these courts were designed to serve. They were not only for settled townspeople who could return next week. They were for people in motion, people whose business existed on the road. Dusty feet suggested urgency, distance, and temporary presence. A trader might arrive with goods after days of travel, strike several bargains, and leave before the local world had settled back to normal. The law had to move at the same pace. The name may sound strange now, but it captured a medieval reality with remarkable precision. Commerce was not fixed in one place. It walked in on tired legs, carrying risk, hope, and goods from somewhere else. Foreign merchants often received special protections during major fairs. A great fair wanted outsiders to come, but outsiders needed reassurance. A merchant far from home could be vulnerable to local hostility, unfair seizure, or sudden violence. Special protections helped solve that fear. Rulers and fair authorities could promise safe conduct, legal rights, and controlled conditions for visiting traders. These promises were not acts of kindness alone. They were commercial strategy. More foreign merchants meant more goods, more fees, more prestige, and more connections to distant markets. Protection also encouraged repeat visits. A trader who survived one journey with profit and fair treatment had reason to return the next year. This turned trust into a long-term asset. In a period when identity was often local, granting rights to strangers was a powerful economic choice. It allowed a fair to become more than a regional gathering. It could become a meeting place where different currencies, languages, and business customs entered the same protected space. Fair guards could protect goods traveling along dangerous roads. The success of a fair did not begin at the gate. It began on the roads leading toward it. Merchants traveled with goods that were easy to steal and hard to replace. Cloth, coin, horses, metalwork, and luxury items could tempt robbers, especially along remote stretches. Some fairs therefore depended on organized protection beyond the market itself. Guards, escorts, safe conduct promises, or the authority of a powerful lord could make the journey less dangerous. This mattered because fear could keep merchants away. A trader weighing profit against risk might avoid a fair if the road was known for theft. Protecting travel routes increased the value of the event before a single stall opened. It also showed that medieval commerce required more than buying and selling. It needed security across space. The marketplace was only the visible center. Around it stretched a wider zone of guarded movement, watchfulness, and calculated courage. Toll collectors recorded who entered markets and what they carried. At the edge of a town, a gate, bridge, or market entrance could become a point of careful observation. Toll collectors watched people arrive with carts, packs, animals, and bundles. Their job was not simply to demand payment. They could help track the flow of goods into the trading place. What entered the market revealed a great deal about the local economy. Grain, livestock, wool, timber, fish, and imported wares all told different stories. Toll records could also support disputes about privilege, since some people claimed exemptions, while others had to pay. The collector stood at a narrow doorway between countryside and commerce. Each arrival became part of the market's rhythm. To the traveler, a toll might feel like an irritating cost. To the authority controlling the market, it was income and information at once. The act of entering trade was counted, charged, and made visible. Some towns fought fiercely for the right to hold markets. A market could change the fate of a town, so competition for trading rights could be intense. Nearby settlements might argue that a new market would steal customers, weaken old privileges, or damage established income. These disputes could reach powerful lords or royal officials because the stakes were high. A weekly gathering brought sellers, buyers, animals, money, and attention. Losing that flow could leave a town poorer and less important. Winning it could help the settlement grow streets, workshops, inns, and influence. This is why market rights were defended with such determination. They were not decorative honors. They were engines of survival. A town without a market might remain dependent on others. A town with one could become the center of its district. Medieval people understood this clearly. Behind what looks like a simple local argument was a struggle over who would control movement, opportunity, and the future shape of the region. A market charter could make a small settlement more valuable. Before a charter, a settlement might be little more than a useful stopping point, a cluster of homes, or a place with local importance only. Once official trading rights were granted, its economic meaning changed. The surrounding land could rise in value because regular crowds created demand. Householders might rent rooms, sell food, or provide services to visitors. Craftsmen could see a reason to move in. Roads leading to the place became more significant. Even the lord or institution that controlled the settlement gained a stronger asset. The charter gave predictability, and predictability attracted investment. People knew when trade would happen and under whose authority. That certainty could turn a modest place into a growing town. The transformation was not always instant, but the potential was real. In medieval terms, legal permission could add value to geography. A place became richer because the world was invited to gather there. Market day was often the best time to hear royal news. News from the king did not arrive through screens, printed headlines, or daily papers. It moved through messengers, officials, clergy, travellers, and public readings. Market day was an ideal moment for announcement because people were already assembled. A royal order, tax demand, military summons, legal change, or warning could reach many ears at once. The message might be proclaimed in a central place where sellers paused and listeners repeated what they heard. From there, the news travelled outward again as people returned to farms and villages. This gave the market a role far beyond commerce. It became a broadcast point for political authority. A person who came to buy salt or sell hens might leave with knowledge of decisions made far away. The king's voice, carried by an official, could suddenly enter the ordinary noise of trade. For many people, market day was when distant power became locally audible. Public proclamations were read where the largest crowds gathered. In a world where many people could not read, public speech carried official life. Authorities chose crowded places because a law or announcement had little effect if nobody heard it. The marketplace offered a ready audience. People gathered there for business, but they also became listeners. A proclamation could concern prices, punishments, taxes, peace orders, sanitation rules, or changes to local obligations. Reading it aloud transformed written authority into a shared public event. The crowd mattered because witnesses helped spread and enforce the message. A person could not easily claim ignorance when the town had heard the words together. This is why the location was so important. The speaker needed visibility, and the market provided it. There is something striking about the scene. Among baskets, animals, stalls, and bargaining, official language rose above the noise. The daily world paused while power made itself heard through a human voice. Punishments in marketplaces were meant to be seen by everyone. Medieval punishment often worked through public memory. A penalty hidden away could correct one person, but a penalty displayed in the marketplace could warn hundreds. Authorities used busy trading spaces because they offered a ready audience. The point was not only pain or inconvenience. It was exposure. A dishonest seller, noisy offender, or rule breaker might be placed where neighbors and strangers could see them. That visibility turned shame into part of the sentence. It also reassured the community that order was being defended. Markets depended on trust, and public penalties showed that wrongdoing had consequences. The setting made the message stronger. The same crowd that bought bread and cloth could watch justice unfold. This may feel harsh to modern eyes, but it reveals how deeply reputation mattered. In a society of face-to-face dealings, being publicly marked as untrustworthy could follow someone long after the punishment ended. Stocks and pillories often stood close to busy trading spaces. These wooden devices were built for visibility. Stocks held a person by the ankles, while a pillory usually held the head and hands. Their placement near trading areas was no accident. A busy market provided witnesses, and witnesses made punishment socially powerful. Someone confined there could be seen by customers, neighbors, travelers, and officials. The offense might be connected with dishonest trade, disorderly conduct, or other local wrongdoing. The punishment slowed the body, but its real force came from the eyes of the crowd. People talked, remembered, and repeated the story. That mattered in a community where reputation could decide whether others trusted your goods, your word, or your household. The devices also served as warnings without needing long explanations. Their presence alone reminded everyone that the market was governed space. Commerce might look lively and crowded, but it existed under rules that could become painfully public when broken. Market fraud could damage a seller's reputation for years. A medieval seller depended on more than goods. They depended on a name that people believed. If a baker cheated, a cloth seller misled buyers, or a dealer passed off poor goods as fine ones, The damage could outlast any formal punishment. Customers remembered. Neighbors talked. Travelers carried the story elsewhere. In markets built on repeated contact, reputation was a kind of credit. It allowed people to buy with confidence, even when they could not inspect everything perfectly. Once damaged, that confidence was hard to rebuild. A seller might still stand in the same place, call out the same offers, and display the same wares. But suspicion could settle over every transaction. This fear helped enforce honest behavior. The market watched itself through memory. A fraud did not disappear when the day ended. It could cling to a person's stall like a shadow, shaping where the buyers approached or quietly walked past. Reputation was sometimes more valuable than a written contract. Written agreements existed, especially in larger trade, but many everyday transactions depended on personal trust. A known seller with a good name could make business happen more easily than a stranger with impressive words. Reputation reduced uncertainty. It told buyers that the goods were likely to be as promised, that the measure would be fair, and that complaints might be handled honestly. In smaller communities, this was especially powerful because people expected to meet again. A person who cheated today might lose customers for years. Even in wider trade, names mattered. Merchants built networks through repeated dealings, family connections, and recommendations. The value of a good reputation could not be locked in a chest, yet it functioned like wealth. It opened doors, smoothed bargains, and made credit possible. In the market, character had economic weight. A trusted name could travel ahead of the person who carried it. Guilds controlled many trades by setting rules and training apprentices. Guilds were among the great organizing forces of medieval town life. They brought people in the same trade under shared expectations. A guild might regulate training, inspect workmanship, control entry into the craft, and defend its members' privileges. For buyers, this could mean more reliable goods. For craftsmen, it could mean protection from unfair competition. Apprentices entered this world young and learned over years through labor, discipline, and close observation. They did not simply study a skill. They absorbed the habits, standards, and secrets of a trade from inside a working household or workshop. Guild rules could be strict because quality affected everyone's reputation. A badly made product did not only shame one maker, it could damage the standing of the whole craft. These organizations made the market less chaotic by shaping who could sell certain goods and how those goods should be made. Behind many stalls stood years of regulated learning. Apprentices learned business habits by watching masters sell in person. An apprentice learned far more than how to shape leather, cut cloth, bake bread, or hammer metal. They watched the business of selling unfold at close range. A master's behavior in the market taught lessons that no written rule could fully capture. How did you answer a doubtful buyer? When did you lower a price? How did you display goods so they seemed worth attention? How did you defend quality without sounding desperate? The apprentice stood near enough to hear the rhythm of bargaining and see the small judgments behind every exchange. This was education through presence. Over time, the young worker learned which customers mattered, which promises should be avoided, and how reputation was protected in public. The market was therefore a classroom as well as a workplace. Every sale carried instruction. Every complaint became a lesson. By watching adults trade, apprentices learned how craft became livelihood. Women sold food, cloth, ale, and household goods in markets. Women were deeply present in medieval market life, especially in the trades that touched daily survival. They sold prepared food, dairy goods, poultry, cloth, ale, small wares, and many household necessities. Their work could support families, supplement farm income, or continue a business when circumstances changed. In some towns, women appeared regularly in records as brewers, hucksters, regrators, and sellers of produce. This presence challenges any simple picture of medieval commerce as entirely male. The market offered women a public economic role, even within a society that placed many legal and social limits on them. Their expertise was practical and sharp. They knew what customers needed, how perishable goods behaved, and how prices shifted with supply. A woman at a stall might be managing household survival as much as selling a product. Her work connected kitchen, farm, street, and town economy in ways that were essential but too easily overlooked. Some widows continued family businesses through market trading rights. Widowhood could be dangerous economically, but it could also open a narrow path to independence. When the husband died, a widow might continue the trade that had supported the household. In towns, this could mean keeping a stall, managing stock, collecting debts, or maintaining relationships with customers. Her right to trade was not always simple, and local rules varied, yet many widows appear in records as active economic figures. They had experience, contacts, and knowledge of the business. Customers may already have known them from years of shared work. Continuing the trade helped preserve family income and protect children from sudden poverty. It also kept the business's reputation alive. A widow who knew the market well could be formidable. She understood suppliers, prices, and the character of regular buyers. Her stall was not merely a sign of loss. It could be a declaration that the household still had skill, standing, and resilience. Peasants brought surplus eggs, cheese, vegetables, and poultry to town. The market connected rural households to the cash economy in small but important ways. Peasant families usually produced first for their own needs, but any surplus could become valuable. A few eggs, a bundle of onions, a live chicken, or a round of cheese might be carried into town and exchanged for coin or necessary goods. These offerings may sound modest, but they were part of the living bloodstream of local trade. Towns needed constant supplies from the countryside. Rural families needed access to items they could not easily make themselves. A market day allowed both needs to meet. The person selling a basket of produce was not necessarily a professional merchant. They might be a farmer's wife, a servant, or a smallholder trying to turn extra food into something useful. Through thousands of such small exchanges, the countryside fed the town, and the town drew rural people into wider patterns of value. Market gardens supplied towns with fresh produce from nearby fields. Perishable food had to be grown close to the people who would eat it. This made market gardens especially important around towns. Gardeners cultivated vegetables, herbs, and other fresh produce in plots near the urban edge, where goods could reach buyers quickly. The work required planning because freshness was the product's greatest strength. A cabbage, leek, or bundle of herbs could not travel like wool or metal. It needed to arrive in good condition, often on the same day it was cut or gathered. These gardens helped shape the landscape around towns, creating a zone where agriculture served urban appetite directly. They also added variety to diets that might otherwise depend heavily on grain. The growers understood seasons, soil, and demand with impressive precision. Their fields were not distant countryside in the abstract. They were part of the town's food system, close enough for morning harvests to become afternoon meals. Salt was one of the most important market commodities. Salt was precious because it answered one of the hardest problems of pre-modern life. Food spoiled. Meat, fish, butter, and some vegetables could not remain fresh indefinitely without help. Salt slowed decay and made preservation possible. That meant it was not merely a seasoning. It was a tool for survival, storage, travel, and trade. Communities far from salt sources depended on supply networks that brought it inland from coasts, salt springs, or mines. Its value could support taxation, monopoly, and long-distance commerce. In a marketplace, salt represented control over time. It allowed food caught or slaughtered in one season to feed people later. It made journeys easier because preserved provisions could be carried. It supported fasting diets through salted fish. The small crystals on a stall therefore carried a significance far beyond taste. They held the power to make abundance last beyond the day it appeared. Spices were small, costly, and easy for merchants to transport. A merchant, thinking carefully about profit, cared about value in relation to weight. Spices were ideal in that sense. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, ginger, and similar goods could be packed into relatively small spaces while carrying great worth. This made them attractive, despite the long journeys involved. A pack animal or ship could carry a fortune in fragrant cargo. Their high price came from distance, demand, risk, and the number of hands through which they passed. In elite households, spices flavored food, signaled status, and appeared in medical or ceremonial uses. In markets, even small quantities could draw attention because they hinted at worlds far beyond the buyer's town. These goods made distance visible through smell. A pinch of spice could represent months of movement across seas, ports, warehouses, and roads. For merchants, that concentration of value was irresistible. For customers, it offered a costly taste of elsewhere. Pepper could pass through many hands before reaching a market store. By the time pepper reached a European buyer, it had often lived many commercial lives. It might begin far from the marketplace, gathered and prepared in a growing region known to Europeans mostly through trade rather than direct experience. From there, it could pass to local dealers, long-distance merchants, ship owners, wholesalers, and urban sellers. Each stage added cost, risk, and profit. The final customer saw a small, dark grain, but hidden inside it was a chain of human effort. Its price reflected not only scarcity but movement. Storms, war, tolls, piracy, storage loss, and political disruption could all affect the journey. Pepper became so familiar in elite cooking that it is easy to forget how extraordinary its path was. A stall selling it was not simply offering flavor. It was offering the endpoint of a vast network. Each grain was a tiny piece of global connection. Cloth was among the most profitable goods in medieval Europe. Cloth mattered because everyone needed fabric, and fine fabric could be extremely valuable. Turning raw fiber into finished material required many stages. Sheep had to be raised, wool had to be sorted, washed, spun, woven, fulled, dyed, and finished. Each stage added labor and skill. This made cloth a powerful commercial product. It could be transported more easily than many bulky raw goods, and quality differences allowed high profits. Towns known for textile production could grow wealthy through exports. Merchants handled cloth with care because a single good piece might represent the work of many hands. Buyers judged weave, color, width, finish, and durability. The trade supported shepherds, spinners, weavers, dyers, fullers, merchants, and officials who inspected quality. Cloth was therefore not just something worn on the body. It was a whole economy made visible in folded lengths of fabric, stacked in shops, packed for fairs, and carried across borders. Wool markets helped shape the wealth of many English towns. Wool was one of medieval England's great economic strengths. The country's sheep produced fleeces that were prized by cloth makers, especially in regions across the Channel. Markets and collection points for wool became crucial because they gathered rural production into forms that merchants could buy, sort, and export. A fleece clipped from a sheep in the countryside might eventually become part of an international textile trade. Towns involved in this movement could benefit through storage, weighing, brokerage, transport, and taxation. Wool wealth helped support merchants, religious houses, and civic building. In some places, the prosperity left marks in stone through churches and town structures funded by the trade. What began in fields became urban influence. The wool market linked pasture to port and shepherd to banker. It showed how a seemingly simple raw material could shape politics, architecture, and social ambition. In medieval England, sheep were not humble background animals. They were engines of wealth. Flemish cloth makers depended on wool moving through long trade networks. Flanders became famous for its textile towns, where skilled workers transformed wool into high-quality cloth. Yet those workshops needed reliable raw material, and much of it came from outside the region. English wool was especially important. This created a powerful relationship across the North Sea. Growers, exporters, shipmasters, merchants, and weavers were tied together by demand. If supply was disrupted, entire urban economies could suffer. The connection also shaped diplomacy and conflict because trade interests often pressed against political loyalties. Cloth towns such as Ghent, Bruges, and Ypres depended on a steady flow of fibre to keep looms active and workers employed. The finished cloth then moved onward again into wider European markets. This was not a simple exchange between two places. It was a chain of dependence. The warmth of wool on one person's back might have begun with English sheep and passed through Flemish skill before reaching its final buyer. Dyers used expensive materials to create fashionable colors for buyers. Color could transform cloth from useful fabric into a sign of wealth. In medieval markets, dyed material often carried a story of skill, cost, and status. Some colors required plants, minerals, insects, or imported substances that were difficult to obtain. A strong red, a deep blue, or a rich purple could announce that the buyer had access to money and taste. Dyers worked with vats, heat, mordants, and careful timing. A mistake could ruin valuable cloth. Their craft also required knowledge that looked almost mysterious to outsiders, since dull fibers might emerge with a completely changed identity. Fashion made this work even more powerful. When a color became desirable, demand could ripple through markets and workshops. People did not only buy warmth or coverage. They bought appearance, rank, and belonging. A dyed cloth on a stall could therefore hold the labor of distant suppliers and the ambitions of the person who hoped to wear it. Some cloth was sealed to prove its quality and origin. A finished piece of cloth could travel far from the hands that made it, so buyers needed signs they could trust. Seals helped provide that assurance. In many textile towns, officials inspected cloth for length, width, weave, finish, and sometimes dye quality before attaching a mark of approval. That seal told merchants and customers that the fabric met recognized standards. It also protected the reputation of the place where it was made. A town known for excellent cloth had reason to stop poor work from carrying its name. The seal turned inspection into a portable promise. It could move with the cloth through fairs, warehouses, ships, and market stalls. For a distant buyer, this mattered enormously. They might never meet the weaver or fuller, but they could recognize authority stamped into the product. In a world full of risk, a small mark could hold the confidence of an entire trade. Merchants checked fabric by touch as carefully as by sight. A skilled cloth buyer did not rely on color alone. Fingers could read what eyes might miss. By handling fabric, a merchant could judge weight, tightness, softness, finish, and hidden flaws. A cloth might look attractive from a distance but feel loose, harsh, thin, or badly finished when lifted. Experienced traders learned to let the material speak through pressure and movement. They might rub it, fold it, stretch a corner, or watch how it fell. Touch revealed whether the fabric would wear well, and whether it deserved the price being asked. This made the marketplace intensely physical. Buying cloth was not a quick glance across a counter. It was an examination. The merchant's hand became an instrument trained by years of risk. One poor purchase could tie up money in material that customers rejected. A good touch, by contrast, could recognize profit before anyone else noticed it. Leather workers sold belts, shoes, pouches, and harness parts in town. Leather was everywhere in medieval daily life because it was strong, flexible, and repairable. In town markets, leather workers supplied objects that people handled constantly. Shoes protected feet from mud, stones, and cold streets. Belts carried knives, purses, and tools. Pouches kept coins and small items safe. Harness parts helped animals pull carts, carry loads, and work fields. This trade connected the human body to the working animal world. A good leather worker needed more than cutting skill. They had to understand thickness, stitching, turning quality, and stress points. A weak strap could break at the worst possible moment. A badly made shoe could turn a journey into misery. Their goods were practical, but they also carried identity. A fine belt or well-shaped purse could show taste and status. In a market filled with necessities, leather goods were among the objects that proved how much medieval life depended on durable craft. Shoemakers often clustered together so buyers could compare their work. A row of shoemakers created competition that customers could hear, see, and test. Buyers could move from one maker to the next, comparing stitching, fit, leather quality, sole thickness, and price. This clustering may sound risky for sellers, but it also drew customers to the right place. Anyone needing shoes knew where to go. The trade benefited from visibility. A skilled maker could stand out when placed beside weaker work. Shoes mattered intensely because most people walked far more than modern people do. Bad footwear could mean pain, slowed travel, and lost labor. A customer might ask about repairs, examine how the upper joined the sole, or judge whether the leather would survive wet streets. In that sense, the shoemaker's store was both shop and proof of ability. Every displayed pair invited comparison. The customer's feet would later decide whether the seller's promises had been honest. Metal workers sold knives, tools, locks, nails, and cooking vessels. Metal goods had a special presence in medieval markets because they carried the promise of strength. A knife could serve at the table, in the workshop, or on the road. A lock protected a chest or doorway. Nails held buildings, carts, and fittings together. Cooking vessels endured heat that would destroy weaker materials. These objects were often small enough to sell from stalls, yet important enough to affect daily work. Metal workers needed control over fire, hammering, tempering, shaping, and repair. Their products also connected many parts of society. Farmers needed tools. Households needed utensils. Tradesmen needed fittings. Travelers needed reliable blades. A poor piece of metalwork could bend, crack, or fail quickly. A well-made item could last for years and pass from one owner to another. In a market, the ring of metal on wood or stone suggested a craft that turned raw ore into dependable power. Potters supplied ordinary households with cheap and useful everyday wares. Not every market object was glamorous, but humble pottery was essential. Clay vessels stored food, carried liquids, cooked meals, and served at tables. They were breakable, which meant households needed replacements again and again. This constant demand gave potters an important role in local trade. Their work began with nearby earth, water, shaping, drying, and firing. A finished pot might be plain, glazed, decorated, or designed for a particular use. Because pottery could be cheaper than metal, it put useful containers within reach of ordinary families. A market stall filled with bowls, jugs, and cooking pots was a display of daily survival. Each piece had to be strong enough for heat or handling, yet inexpensive enough to replace when cracked. Potters turned the ground itself into household equipment. Their goods remind us that medieval markets were not only about rare luxuries. They were also where everyday life was continually restocked. Candle sellers mattered because winter evenings needed reliable light. Darkness shaped medieval life more than most modern people imagine. When the sun set early, work, prayer, cooking, conversation, and travel indoors depended on flame. Candles were not all equal. Some were made from tallow, which was cheaper but could smell and smoke. Others were made from beeswax, which burned cleaner and was prized for churches and wealthier households. Candle sellers provided access to time after sunset. That made their goods quietly powerful. A candle could let a craftsperson finish work, a reader study a text, or a family move safely around a room. In winter, demand increased because nights stretched long across the day's edges. The seller's stock represented stored light, measured in hours of burning. Wax and fat became a way to push back darkness. In a market filled with food and tools, candles offered something less solid but just as necessary. They sold visibility itself. Markets sold medicine, herbs, and remedies alongside ordinary groceries. Healthcare in a medieval marketplace could sit surprisingly close to the food trade. Buyers might find dried herbs, ointments, syrups, spices, charms, or prepared remedies sold by people with varying degrees of knowledge. Some remedies came from long traditions of household medicine. Others were linked to learned ideas about the body's balance. A customer with a cough, aching joint, troubled stomach, or sleepless child might seek help from a vendor rather than a formally trained physician. The market made healing accessible in small purchases. It also carried risk, since not every seller was reliable and not every cure was effective. Still, these stalls reveal a world where medicine was part of everyday exchange. Herbs were smelled, touched, bundled, and recommended in person. Advice moved with the product. A remedy bought in the market was not simply a substance. It was a hope that ordinary materials might restore comfort and strength. Traveling entertainers helped turn larger fairs into public spectacles. A major fair offered performers the one thing they needed most. It offered a crowd. Entertainers followed gatherings where people had spare coins, open attention, and a desire to be amused after business. Their presence changed the atmosphere of a fair. Trade remained central, but performance gave the event color and excitement. A buyer might come for cloth and linger for a comic tale. A child might remember the performer more vividly than the goods. Entertainers helped make fairs feel different from ordinary market days. They transformed economic gathering into shared experience. This mattered because people who enjoyed a fair were more likely to return. The fair became a date in the memory, not just a commercial appointment. Performers also carried stories between regions, spreading jokes, songs, and news in lively forms. Their work reminds us that medieval trade was never purely practical. Where people gathered to buy, they also gathered to be astonished. Musicians and storytellers could draw crowds near profitable stalls. Sound had commercial power. A musician playing in the right place could slow passing feet and gather listeners. A storyteller could hold attention long enough for nearby sellers to benefit from the pause. In a crowded fair, this mattered. People might move quickly past dozens of stalls unless something made them stop. Performance created stillness inside motion. Once a crowd formed, vendors around it gained a better chance to display goods, offer food, or call out prices. The performer might earn coins directly, but the surrounding trade could gain as well. This relationship between entertainment and selling was subtle but effective. A tune or tale could make a corner of the market feel alive and worth approaching. It also helped people remember where they had been. The mind attaches trade to experience. A song heard while buying a knife or ribbon could make the market day linger long after sunset. Jugglers performed where people already gathered to trade and talk. A juggler needed open space, alert eyes, and a crowd ready to be surprised. Markets and fairs offered all three. The performance could be simple or daring, but the effect was immediate. People looked up. Conversations paused. Children pulled adults closer. In a world with few professional entertainments available to ordinary people, a display of timing and skill could feel remarkable. The juggler's success depended on reading the crowd as much as controlling the objects. A good performer knew when to build suspense, when to make people laugh, and when to pass a hat or bowl for coins. The setting mattered because trade had already created the audience. People came for business, but they stayed for wonder. This made the marketplace a natural stage. The juggler turned empty air into a source of income, using only movement, nerve, and the human pleasure of watching risk made graceful. Money changers became essential when merchants arrived with different coins. Medieval money was not a single, simple system. Coins came from different rulers, regions, and mints. They varied in weight, metal content, reputation, and acceptability. A merchant arriving at a fair might hold coins that local sellers did not know well. This created a problem at the heart of trade. How much was a foreign coin really worth? Money changers offered expertise. They weighed coins, judged quality, knew exchange rates, and converted unfamiliar money into forms more useful for local business. Their tables could be as important as stalls selling goods because they made transactions possible between people from different monetary worlds. A mistaken exchange could cost serious money. A dishonest changer could damage many deals. Skilled money changers turned confusion into calculation. They helped commerce cross political boundaries. In their hands, metal became a language that strangers could use to understand one another. Italian bankers helped fairs handle credit across long distances. As trade expanded, carrying enough coin for large transactions became risky and inconvenient. Italian bankers and merchant financiers developed methods that allowed business to move beyond the weight of metal. At major fairs, they helped settle accounts, transfer value, and extend credit between distant partners. This was crucial for merchants who bought in one region and sold in another. A trader might not have all the coin needed at the exact moment of purchase, but credit could bridge the gap. Banking families and firms built trust through records, correspondence, and repeated dealings. Their work made fairs more than places of direct exchange. They became financial centers where obligations could be balanced and future payment arranged. This required literacy, numeracy, and reputation. It also required nerve because credit always involved risk. Through these systems, commerce grew more flexible. Money no longer had to travel in a sack to shape events far away. Bills of exchange reduced the need to carry heavy coin. A bill of exchange could turn danger into paperwork. Instead of transporting large sums of coin across risky roads, a merchant could arrange for payment through written instructions recognized by trusted partners. The document allowed money owed in one place to be settled in another. This was especially useful when trade connected distant cities and fairs. Coins were heavy, visible, and tempting to thieves. Written credit was lighter and often safer, although it depended on trust and enforceable reputation. The system also helped with different currencies, since payment could be calculated through agreed exchange rates. To modern ears, it may sound like an early financial instrument, and that is exactly why it mattered. It allowed commerce to become more sophisticated. A valuable transaction no longer required a chest of silver to move mile after mile. The true movement could happen through names, promises, and ink, carried by people who understood its worth. Some medieval fairs worked like international financial clearinghouses. At certain great fairs, merchants did not only sell goods, they settled webs of debt. A trader who owed money to one person might be owed money by another. Instead of everyone paying in coins separately, accounts could be compared and balanced. This made the fair a place where obligations met. The process required careful records and trusted intermediaries. It also shows how advanced medieval commerce could be. Behind the visible stalls, there was a quieter world of calculation. Money might change hands, but sometimes only the remaining difference had to be paid after debts were offset. That saved effort and reduced the need for physical coin. These financial gatherings linked regions more tightly than ordinary buying could. A fair became a moment when distant promises came due. For merchants, success depended not only on selling goods, but on managing credit, timing, and trust across a whole network of relationships. Debt agreements could be settled at the next major fair. A fair calendar gave merchants more than dates for buying and selling. It gave them deadlines for payment. People doing business across distance often agreed that debts would be settled at a later fair where both parties or their representatives expected to meet. This arrangement made credit practical. A merchant could take goods now, sell them elsewhere, and repay when the trading circuit returned to a major gathering. The fair became a clock for commerce. Its opening marked not only opportunity, but obligation. This required confidence that the event would happen, that travel would be possible, and that reputations would be remembered. Failure to pay could damage future business. Payment at the fair also allowed many accounts to be handled at once, which made long-distance trade more efficient. The system reveals a world of planning and trust. Medieval merchants were not simply haggling at stalls. They were managing time. Merchants often planned journeys around the calendar of famous fairs. The road itself could be organized by trade dates. A merchant might move from one fair to another, timing travel so goods reached the right crowd at the right season. This required knowledge of routes, weather, local demand, tolls, and political conditions. Planning badly could mean arriving after buyers had left or carrying goods to a place already oversupplied. Planning well could turn a year into a sequence of profitable stops. Famous fairs acted like anchors in the merchant's calendar. Around them, traders arranged purchases, transport, credit, and rest. The business was not random wandering. It was a disciplined movement through time and space. Each fair had its own reputation, specialties, and risks. A successful merchant learned the rhythm. They knew when to leave, where to pause, and what to carry. Their year was measured not only by seasons, but by openings of trade that could not be missed. Seasonal fairs could last far longer than ordinary weekly markets. A weekly market might fill a term for a day, but a seasonal fair could transform it for much longer. Some fairs lasted several days, and major ones could stretch across weeks. That extra time changed everything. Merchants could travel from farther away because the opportunity justified the journey. Buyers could compare more goods. Entertainers, fruit sellers, money changers, and servants could all find work around the event. Temporary structures might appear, and local lodging could fill quickly. A long fair created its own short-lived economy. It had an arrival phase, a peak, and a gradual dispersal. The town had to manage crowding, waste, security, and disputes for longer than usual. This made the fair feel almost like a temporary city layered over the permanent one. When it ended, the place returned to itself, but not unchanged. Money had moved, news had spread, and relationships had been renewed. Harvest time changed what filled stalls and baskets. The contents of a market followed the agricultural year. After harvest, grain became more available, and rural households might bring produce that had just been gathered from fields, orchards, and gardens. The market could suddenly look fuller, heavier, and more abundant. Buyers watched these changes closely because supply affected price. A good harvest might ease anxiety. A poor one could make every sack and basket feel important. The season also shaped labor. Families had to decide what to keep, what to sell, and what to store for the months ahead. Market stalls therefore revealed the condition of the countryside. They showed whether the year had been generous or cruel. Harvest trade was not only a celebration of plenty, it was a moment of calculation. The food visible in town carried the memory of weather, soil, pests, and human work. Each basket told a small part of the year's outcome. Winter markets depended heavily on preserved foods and stored grain. When fields stopped producing fresh abundance, the market changed character. Stored grain became central because bread and pottage still had to be made. Preserved foods mattered more because households needed supplies that could survive cold months. Salted fish, smoked meat, dried peas, beans, onions, nuts, cheese, and stored apples could become especially important. Winter trade reflected preparation. The success of a household depended partly on what had been saved before frost and short days arrived. A poor storage year could make winter frightening. Markets helped distribute what remained, but they could not create abundance from nothing. Prices might rise when supplies tightened. Quality also mattered, since damp or badly stored grain could spoil. A winter stall showed the medieval struggle against time. Food had to be held back from decay long enough to sustain life. The market became a place where the past season's work was measured against the needs of the present. Lent changed demand because many Christians avoided meat. The church calendar had a direct effect on what people bought. During Lent, many Christians abstained from meat, which changed the demand for other foods. Fish became especially important, along with foods that helped households maintain meals under religious rules. This was not a small private preference. It could reshape trade across towns and regions. Fishmongers, suppliers, and transporters had to respond to increased need. Preserved fish could travel where fresh fish could not, which made it valuable far from coasts and rivers. The change also affected cooks, inns, monasteries, and urban households. Religious discipline entered the marketplace through appetite. Buyers came looking for foods that allowed them to obey the season while still feeding families. The result was a market shaped by belief. Faith did not remain inside churches. It influenced prices, supply routes, storage practices, and the daily choices made at stalls. Religious calendars shaped what people bought throughout the year. Medieval buying habits were tied to sacred time. Feasts, fasts, saints' days, and church seasons could all alter demand. Certain days called for celebration, and celebration required food, candles, decorations, gifts, or special clothing. Other periods called for restraint, which shifted purchases toward permitted foods and simpler meals. This made the market responsive to a calendar that everyone understood. Sellers prepared for these changes because predictable demand meant opportunity. A vendor who knew a feast was approaching could stock items likely to sell. A household might save money for a celebration or adjust its shopping before a fast. Religious life therefore gave trade a recurring pattern beyond weather and harvest. It shaped what felt appropriate to buy and when. The market became one of the places where belief took material form. Sacred time appeared not only in prayers and processions, but in baskets, stalls, kitchens, and the choices of ordinary customers. Pilgrimage routes created busy markets near shrines and holy places. Pilgrims needed food, lodging, badges, candles, shoes, and countless small services along the way. Wherever large numbers traveled for devotion, trade followed. A shrine could turn a town into a destination, and the route toward it could support a chain of sellers. The pilgrims themselves came with different levels of wealth. Some bought simple provisions. Others purchased tokens to prove they had reached the holy site. Local economies adapted to this movement. Inns expanded. Artisans produced religious souvenirs. Food sellers learned when crowds were likely to arrive. The marketplace near a shrine carried a unique charge because people were not merely shopping. They were traveling with hope, gratitude, fear, or penance. Commerce and devotion met in the same streets. To modern eyes, that may seem contradictory, but for medieval communities it was practical reality. A sacred destination could feed the soul, while the market nearby fed the journey. Monasteries sometimes became important economic centers through local trade. A monastery could be a place of prayer, but it could also be a major manager of land, labor, and goods. Many religious houses owned fields, mills, flocks, workshops, and rights that tied them deeply to local economies. Surplus produce might be sold. Tenants might bring payments in kind. Visitors and dependents needed supplies. In some areas, a monastery's presence helped organize trade around it. This economic role did not erase its spiritual purpose. Instead, it shows how intertwined medieval institutions were with daily survival. Monks required food, clothing, books, tools, and building materials. Their estates produced and purchased on a serious scale. A religious house could influence prices, employment, and transport in the surrounding district. People might come to its gates for charity, business, or obligation. The market world was therefore not separate from the cloister. Even communities dedicated to withdrawal from worldly life had to live within an economy. Abbey estates sold wool, grain, livestock, and crafted goods. Large abbeys could control extensive estates, and those estates produced more than the community itself needed. Surplus had to be managed carefully. Wool from monastic flocks could enter regional or international trade. Grain from abbey lands could supply towns, tenants, or buyers during market seasons. Livestock provided meat, hides, traction, breeding value, and income. Workshops attached to religious houses might also produce useful crafted items. The scale could be impressive. An abbey was not simply a building with monks inside. It could be the center of a broad agricultural and commercial system. Officials, servants, tenants, shepherds, millers, and carters all played roles in moving goods outward. The spiritual prestige of an abbey could sit alongside hard economic calculation. Selling surplus helped support worship, hospitality, charity, construction, and administration. The result was a powerful blend of prayer and production. Abbey wealth often began in fields and ended in the market. Town walls could make markets feel safer for traders. A walled town offered psychological and practical reassurance. Walls did not remove every danger, but they marked a place where entry could be controlled and defense was possible. For traders arriving with valuable goods, that mattered. A market inside or near protected space could feel more reliable than one exposed to sudden disorder. The walls also gave a town a sense of status. They suggested organization, authority, and the ability to protect commerce. During tense periods, this could influence where merchants chose to travel. Safety affected profit because stolen goods, damaged animals, or interrupted trade could ruin a journey. Walls also concentrated movement through gates, which made oversight easier. Inside, buyers and sellers could operate within a defined civic space. The stone around the town helped create confidence in the activity within. For a merchant on the road, the sight of walls ahead could mean more than architecture. It could mean relief. Gates controlled traffic and helped officials collect market tolls. A town gate was a narrow point of power. People, animals, carts, and goods had to pass through it, which made it ideal for supervision. Officials could inspect arrivals, collect payments, enforce restrictions, and monitor who entered during busy trading times. This control mattered especially when markets drew people from the surrounding countryside and beyond. A gate turned movement into something measurable. It also helped protect the town from disorder by limiting entry points. For merchants, passing through the gate could be the formal beginning of business. For authorities, it was a moment to claim revenue and assert rights. The process might be annoying, but it supported the systems that made trade possible. Guards and collectors at gates stood between the open road and the regulated town. Every cart that creaked beneath the archway carried not only goods, but also an obligation to the authority that controlled access. Bridges often became trading hotspots because travelers had to cross. A bridge concentrates movement by solving a problem. Where rivers interrupted roads, crossing points became valuable. People who had to pass over a bridge could become customers, especially if the crossing lay near a town, gate, or toll point. Sellers understood this advantage. Food, drink, repairs, lodging, and small goods all made sense where travelers slowed down. A bridge could also connect markets to wider routes, allowing goods from one side of a river to reach buyers on the other. Control of the bridge could bring income because tolls were easier to collect where movement narrowed. The place itself carried strategic weight. It might be guarded, repaired, fought over, or granted as a privilege. In commercial terms, the bridge made geography profitable. It turned necessity into opportunity. Every traveler who crossed had already chosen the route, and that made the nearby market harder to ignore. River ports linked inland markets with distant coastal trade. Rivers gave inland towns access to a larger world. Moving heavy goods by water was often easier and cheaper than dragging them over rough roads. A river port could gather grain, wool, timber, stone, wine, fish, salt, or imported wares, then send them onward through connected waterways and coastal routes. This made some inland markets far less isolated than they looked on a map. A town many miles from the sea might still receive goods that had traveled by ship, barge, and cart in sequence. River ports also created work for boatmen, loaders, warehouse keepers, toll collectors, and merchants. The waterway became a commercial artery. Its currents carried more than cargo. They carried prices, news, risks, and possibilities. Floods or low water could disrupt trade, while a well-placed landing could enrich a town. Where road met river, the market gained reach beyond its own horizon. Pack horses carried goods where carts struggled on poor roads. A cart needed a road that could bear wheels, but a pack horse could keep moving when the surface turned narrow, steep, or broken. That made it invaluable in many parts of medieval trade. Goods could be loaded into panniers or bundles and taken across hills, through woodland tracks, or along routes where mud would trap heavier vehicles. The loads were smaller than a cart could carry, yet the flexibility was enormous. A train of pack horses could bring cloth, salt, metal goods, or foodstuffs into places that might otherwise be difficult to supply. The animals also needed handling skill. Loads had to be balanced. hooves protected, and pace managed over long distances. For the merchant, every mile depended on the strength and steadiness of living transport. The packhorse reminds us that medieval markets were not fed by roads alone. They were fed by muscle, patience, and the careful movement of animals. Carts made heavy goods cheaper to move over short distances. When the road allowed it, a cart could change the economics of trade. Heavy goods such as grain, timber, stone, barrels, and sacks were difficult to move on backs or pack animals alone. A cart placed that weight on wheels, allowing one animal to pull more than it could carry. This lowered the cost of moving bulky materials, especially between nearby villages, fields, mills, and towns. The advantage depended on conditions. A hard road could make a cart efficient. Deep mud could turn it into a burden. Wheel repairs, axle grease, harness, and animal strength all mattered. Still, for local markets, carts were essential. They allowed larger quantities to arrive together, which affected supply and price. A creaking cart at dawn could mean bread for a town, fuel for hearths, or building material for repair. Wheels did not make travel easy, but they made heavier commerce possible. Bad weather could decide whether market day succeeded or failed. A market depended on people arriving, and weather could stop them before trade even began. Heavy rain turned roads into mud. Snow hid tracks and slowed animals. High winds made river crossings more dangerous. A storm at the wrong moment could leave stalls half empty, buyers absent, and perishable goods wasted. This mattered because many sellers could not simply wait forever. Food spoiled, animals needed feeding, and families depended on the money from that day. Weather also shaped mood. A bright morning could draw crowds from surrounding villages. A cold downpour could keep cautious customers at home. The market may have been protected by law, but it remained exposed to the sky. Medieval people understood this uncertainty intimately. A successful day was never guaranteed by permission alone. It required passable roads, willing travelers, and a little mercy from the clouds above the route. Muddy roads made fragile goods harder to deliver safely. Mud did more than slow travel. It endangered the goods themselves. A cart jolting through ruts could crack pottery, bruise fruit, soak cloth, or break containers. Pack animals might stumble, sending bundles into dirty water. Sellers carrying eggs, glass, fine wares, or delicate foods had to think carefully about how to wrap, balance, and protect them. The journey could ruin profit before the stall was even set up. Mud also made transport more expensive because it took longer, tired animals faster, and increased the chance of damage. In wet seasons, a road could become a test of judgment. Was the market worth the risk? Should goods be held back for another day? Could a safer route be found? These choices shaped what buyers saw when they reached town. A marketplace did not only reflect demand, it reflected the condition of every lane and track that fed it. Market stalls were often temporary structures built for trading days. Many medieval sellers did not trade from permanent shops. They created their place of business only when the market gathered. A stall could be assembled from poles, boards, trestles, cloth coverings, or simple frames. It had to be practical, quick to set up, and strong enough to display goods in public. This temporary quality gave markets their special character. A square or street could look ordinary one day and become a crowded commercial landscape the next. The seller had to think about visibility, shade, rain, theft, and the reach of a customer's hand. A good stall made goods seem orderly and trustworthy. A poor one could make even decent products look careless. When the day ended, many structures disappeared again, leaving only trampled ground and memories of trade. The market was therefore partly architecture and partly event. It rose, worked, and vanished according to the rhythm of the town. Some sellers used simple boards laid across barrels as counters. Not every trader needed an elaborate booth. A board laid across barrels, boxes, or trestles could create a counter quickly. This simple setup was cheap, portable, and effective. It lifted goods above mud and made them easier for customers to inspect. A seller could display bread, cloth pieces, tools, ribbons, herbs, or small household items on a surface that looked organized enough for trade. The arrangement also created a boundary between seller and buyer. Money could be counted there. Goods could be measured there. Bargaining could happen across it. The simplicity reveals something important about medieval commerce. A market did not require polished shopfronts to function. It required a recognized space, a surface for exchange, and people willing to trust the moment. With a few pieces of wood and a crowd of buyers, an empty street could become a working economy. Shoppers could judge freshness by smell, touch, and seller reputation. Before labels, expiry dates, and refrigeration, buyers relied on trained senses. Freshness had to be read directly from the goods. A fish might be judged by its eyes and scent. Fruit could be tested by firmness. Cheese, meat, herbs, and poultry each gave signals to anyone experienced enough to notice them. Touch and smell were forms of practical intelligence. Customers also relied on memory. A seller known for honest stock had an advantage because trust reduced uncertainty. A stranger might face closer inspection. This made shopping active rather than passive. The buyer had to look, question, compare, and decide. Mistakes could matter because spoiled food wasted money and could make a household ill. The marketplace trained ordinary people to become sharp observers. Every purchase involved judgment. Behind the simple act of choosing food was a whole world of sensory skill, learned through daily life and sharpened by necessity. Haggling was a normal part of many market purchases. A price in a medieval market was often the beginning of a conversation rather than the end of one. Buyer and seller might test each other through offers, objections, and small performances of reluctance. The seller praised quality. The buyer pointed out flaws. Each tried to discover how far the other would move. Haggling required nerve, patience, and social skill. It could also reveal information. A seller with too much stock might accept less. A buyer in urgent need might pay more. The exchange was not always hostile. It could be familiar, even expected, especially between people who traded regularly. A successful bargain allowed both sides to feel they had protected their interests. The spoken rhythm of the market depended on this back and forth. It made prices feel alive, shaped by supply, demand, personality, and timing. In that moment, value was not fixed on a tag. It was negotiated aloud. Some prices changed with supply, scarcity, and official regulation. Medieval prices could move for many reasons. A poor harvest might make grain costly. A glut of produce could lower the value of goods that had to be sold quickly. War, road danger, disease, or bad weather could interrupt supply and make familiar items suddenly expensive. Authorities sometimes tried to control key prices because basic necessities affected public order. This created a complicated world where market value was pulled between need, availability, and rules. Sellers watched conditions carefully. Buyers learned when to purchase and when to wait. A household budget could be strained by changes that began far away, perhaps in a failed crop or blocked route. Price was therefore a kind of message. It told people whether the season had been kind, whether trade was flowing, and whether officials were intervening. Each number spoken over a stall carried pressure from the wider world. Grain markets were watched closely because hunger could cause unrest. Grain was the foundation of survival for many medieval communities. It became bread, ale, pottage, and porridge. If grain prices rose too high, fear spread quickly because households knew what shortage meant. Town authorities paid close attention to grain markets for that reason. They worried about hoarding, unfair dealing, export during scarcity, and panic buying. A hungry crowd could become an angry crowd. The grain market was therefore not just a commercial space. It was a place where public peace was tested. Officials might inspect measures, monitor sellers, or enforce rules about sale. The goal was not only fairness in trade, it was stability. Every sack had social weight. A merchant might see grain as inventory, but a laborer saw it as tomorrow's meal. This tension made grain one of the most politically sensitive goods in the marketplace. When bread was threatened, authority had to pay attention. Town authorities feared food hoarding during shortages and bad harvests. Hoarding could turn scarcity into crisis. If sellers held back food while waiting for higher prices, ordinary people might face hunger even when supplies still existed. Medieval authorities often viewed this behavior as dangerous because it seemed to profit from public need. During bad harvests, suspicion could fall on grain dealers, bakers, millers, or anyone believed to be hiding stock. The fear was not imaginary. Food markets depended on trust, and shortage made trust fragile. Officials might search stores, compel sales, restrict export, or punish those accused of manipulating supply. The moral issue was clear to many communities. Food was a commodity, but it was also life. Treating hunger purely as an opportunity could provoke outrage. Hoarding fears show how closely economics and ethics were linked. A full granary in a hungry town was not merely private property in the public imagination. It was a question of justice. Forest laws affected which animals and goods reached local markets. Medieval forests were not simply wooded places. Many were legal zones controlled by special rules. These laws could restrict hunting, grazing, woodcutting, charcoal making, and the taking of certain natural resources. That meant forest law could influence what appeared in local markets. Venison might be forbidden to ordinary hunters. Timber access could be limited. Pannage, which allowed pigs to feed on acorns, could be regulated. People who depended on woodland products had to navigate authority before goods reached town. This made the forest an economic landscape as well as a natural one. It supplied fuel, building material, animals, bark, nuts, honey, and pasture, but not always freely. Restrictions could frustrate villagers while protecting elite privileges or preserving valuable resources. A market stall selling woodland goods carried more than rural labor. It carried the invisible pressure of law, ownership, and contested access to the land. Livestock markets were noisy because buyers inspected animals before purchase. Buying an animal was a serious decision. A cow, pig, sheep, or goat was not a simple object. It was a living investment that could provide milk, meat, wool, labor, breeding, or manure. Buyers needed to inspect animals closely before handing over money. They looked at teeth, eyes, legs, coat condition, size, and behavior. They listened to breathing and watched movement. Sellers answered questions, praised strengths, and tried to ease doubts. The result was a marketplace full of sound and motion. Animals bleated, lowed, squealed, pulled at ropes, and shifted under nervous hands. The noise was part of the business. It proved that trade here involved living bodies with uncertain futures. A bad purchase could cost a family dearly. A good one could support them for years. In a livestock market, knowledge was measured by the ability to see health, strength, and value before time revealed the truth. Horses were tested for strength, age, health, and obedience. A horse could be transport, labor, status, and military potential, depending on its type and owner. That made inspection crucial. Buyers examined teeth to estimate age. They watched how the animal walked or trotted. They checked legs for swelling, hooves for soundness, and temperament for signs of trouble. A strong horse that refused commands could be dangerous. A calm one with hidden weakness could become costly. Sellers might demonstrate movement or allow a buyer to handle the reins. The purchase required experience because some defects could be disguised for a short time. The horse market therefore mixed hope with suspicion. The animal in front of the buyer represented future journeys, plowed fields, deliveries, or social display. It might carry goods to market for years, or fail soon after sale. Every twitch of the ear, every step, and every breath could become evidence in a high-stakes decision. Cattle sales required trust because hidden illness could ruin buyers. A cow or ox could represent a large share of a household's wealth. If it was secretly ill, the loss could be devastating. Some diseases were visible only to skilled eyes. Others might not show clearly until after the sale. Buyers therefore needed to trust the seller's word, but they also needed caution. They examined the animal's body, appetite, movement, and condition. They asked about age, calving, work history, and milk yield. The risk went beyond one animal. Illness could spread to the buyer's herd, turning a single bad bargain into a wider disaster. This made honesty essential in cattle markets. Reputation carried real economic weight because people remembered sellers whose animals caused trouble. Legal disputes could follow, but prevention was better than argument. The cattle market reminds us that medieval trade often involved uncertain living value. A buyer was not only purchasing meat or labor, they were purchasing trust in a future body. Some markets separated animals from food to control filth. Crowded markets had to manage the reality of animals. Livestock produced dung, urine, noise, smell, and movement. Food sellers needed cleaner surroundings, especially when handling bread, dairy, fish, or cooked provisions. Separating animals from food helped protect goods and customers. It also made the marketplace easier to organize. A town could direct cattle, horses, pigs, or sheep to one area, while reserving another space for edible goods. This division reduced confusion and made inspection simpler. It also shows that medieval authorities understood the practical dangers of mixing everything together. They may not have known modern germ theory, but they knew filth spoiled food and offended buyers. Order in a market was not only about law. It was about space. Where things stood mattered. By placing animals apart, a town could make trade cleaner, safer, and more manageable, while still allowing livestock to remain a vital part of market life. Waste rules mattered because crowded markets could become unhealthy quickly. A market produced waste at remarkable speed. Food scraps, straw, dung, broken containers, spoiled goods, blood, ash, and mud could build up in busy places. If left unmanaged, the mess attracted animals, worsened smells, blocked movement, and threatened public health. Town authorities created rules because disorder could damage both trade and daily life. Sellers might be told where to dump refuse, when to clean their area, or what not to throw into streets and waterways. Enforcement was never perfect, but the concern was real. A filthy market discouraged buyers and angered residents who had to live with the aftermath. Waste control also protected the reputation of the town. A place known for foul conditions might lose custom. the problem reveals the hidden labor behind commerce. A market did not end when the last bargain was made. Someone had to deal with what buying, selling, eating, and slaughtering left behind. Street cleaning became more urgent after busy trading days. When the crowd dispersed, the town had to face what remained. Market day could leave streets churned with mud, straw, animal droppings, spilled grain, fish scales, vegetable leaves, and broken fragments from stalls. Cleaning was not simply a matter of appearance. Refuse could book drains, pollute water, attract pests, and make movement unpleasant. The urgency increased when the same streets had to serve residents again the next morning. Some towns required householders, sellers, or hired workers to clear particular areas. The task was physical and unglamorous, yet it helped keep the market acceptable to the community. Without cleaning, the prosperity of trade could become a burden on those who lived nearby. The aftermath shows the true cost of gathering people in numbers. For every lively stall and successful sale, there was a quieter duty waiting at the end. Commerce made a mess, and civic order began with removing it. Medieval market smells came from food, animals, smoke, and refuse. A medieval market would have announced itself through the nose as much as the eye. Fresh bread, frying food, herbs, leather, wool, fish, dung, smoke, damp wood, and rotting waste could mingle in the same space. Smell helped people navigate. It warned them about spoiled goods, led them toward cooking stalls, and marked the presence of animals before they were seen. Modern descriptions often flatten the past into pictures, but the marketplace was a full-body experience. It could be appetizing one moment and overwhelming the next. Different trades had different odors, and some were strong enough to shape where officials wanted sellers placed. Smell also revealed the speed of decay in a world without modern sanitation. Freshness and foulness existed close together. To stand in a medieval market was to enter a cloud of practical information. The air itself told a story of labor, appetite, risk, and crowding. Bells, cries, bargaining, and carts made markets loudly alive. The sound of a medieval market was layered and constant. Carts creaked over uneven ground. Animals called out or resisted their handlers. Sellers raised their voices to attract customers. Buyers questioned prices. Metal tools rang against wood. Bells marked time or authority from nearby towers. This soundscape mattered because it carried information. A shout could announce fresh goods. A dispute could draw a crowd. A cart arriving late might signal a new supply. People learned to hear meaning inside the noise. The market was not a silent display of goods. It was a living performance of exchange. Voices competed for attention, and attention could become money. For someone arriving from a small rural settlement, the volume alone could feel astonishing. It proved that many lives had converged at once. The marketplace sounded like movement, choice, pressure, and possibility. Its noise was the music of a town doing business. Market cries helped sellers stand out in crowded streets. When many sellers offered similar goods, a strong voice could become a business tool. Market cries were short-spoken calls designed to catch the ear. They might announce what was fresh, cheap, hot, rare, or ready to buy. A seller who cried well could cut through the noise and pull attention toward a stall or basket. The cry needed rhythm and clarity because listeners were moving, distracted, and surrounded by competing sounds. It also gave personality to trade. Customers might recognize a familiar call before seeing the seller. In this way, voice became a kind of brand. The cry could carry across a street faster than a sign could be read. For sellers without permanent shops, that mattered. Their presence had to be created each day through sound. A market cry was not random shouting. It was advertising shaped for a world where the human voice did much of the selling. Some sellers advertised quality by shouting familiar phrases aloud. A repeated phrase could build trust through recognition. Sellers used spoken formulas to present their goods as fresh, fine, strong, sweet, clean, or honestly measured. The exact wording varied by place and trade, but the purpose was the same. A familiar call made goods easier to notice and remember. It also allowed sellers to perform confidence. A hesitant voice might weaken belief. A bold one could make buyers look twice. In crowded markets, words had to work quickly. They had to name the product, suggest value, and invite approach before the customer moved on. Over time, certain calls became part of a town's daily sound. People knew who sold what by the phrase that floated above the crowd. This oral advertising reminds us that medieval marketing did not wait for printed posters or shop windows. It lived in breath, repetition, and the skill of making strangers turn their heads. Town officials could decide where each kind of seller stood. The layout of a market was often controlled rather than accidental. Officials might assign places to different trades, so movement remained possible and inspection became easier. Fish sellers, butchers, bakers, cloth merchants, livestock dealers, and small vendors could be directed toward particular spots. This helped prevent quarrels over the best locations. It also allowed authorities to separate messy trades from cleaner ones and keep important routes open. Space had value, so placement could affect profit. A stall near heavy foot traffic might be far more desirable than one on the edge. Controlling location meant controlling opportunity. The market therefore had an internal geography shaped by law, habit, and negotiation. A customer might experience it as a busy maze, but behind the pattern was a civic attempt to make crowding manageable. Where a seller stood could reflect status, trade type, payment, and the town's idea of order. Market order helped prevent fights, confusion, and blocked streets. Crowds can turn troublesome when no one controls space. In a medieval market, carts needed room, animals needed handling, customers needed access, and emergency movement could not be impossible. Disorder could lead to arguments over store positions, damaged goods, frightened animals, or blocked doorways. Market order reduced these risks. Rules about placement, timing, weights, waste, and conduct helped the event function. They also protected the town from the market's own success. A crowded trading day brought money, but it could also create tension. If pathways clogged, tempers rose. If sellers pushed beyond their places, neighbors complained. If carts stopped in the wrong place, trade slowed. Good order made commerce smoother and more profitable. It allowed many strangers to share a limited space without constant conflict. The market may have looked spontaneous, but its survival depended on discipline. Freedom to trade worked best when guided by rules everyone could recognize. Outsiders sometimes paid higher tolls than local townspeople. Markets often treated people differently, depending on where they came from. Local residents might enjoy reduced charges or exemptions because they belonged to the town's legal community. Outsiders, by contrast, could be charged more for entry, stall space, or the right to sell. This reflected both privilege and protection. A town wanted visiting traders because they brought goods and money, but it also guarded advantages for its own people. Higher tolls could help compensate the authority that maintained the market and controlled access. For an outsider, the extra cost became part of doing business. It might be accepted if the market offered enough buyers. These differences remind us that medieval trade did not happen in a world of equal access. Rights were layered. Belonging mattered. The same basket of goods could face different costs depending on the seller's status, origin, and relationship to the town that hosted the exchange. Merchants formed partnerships to share risk across dangerous journeys. A long trading journey could ruin a person if everything depended on one purse. Goods could be stolen, ships could sink, animals could die, and buyers could fail to pay. Partnerships allowed merchants to spread that danger. One person might provide capital, another might travel. Several investors might share the cost of a shipment and divide the profit later. This made larger ventures possible than a single trader could manage alone. It also encouraged specialization. A person with money did not always need to endure the road, while a skilled traveler did not always need to own all the goods. Trust remained essential because distance made supervision difficult. Agreements had to define shares, duties, and repayment. Partnerships show the intelligence behind medieval commerce. Traders were not simply gamblers hoping for luck. They developed ways to manage uncertainty. By sharing risk, they turned danger from a private burden into a calculated business problem. Insurance ideas grew from the risks of long-distance trade. The more goods traveled, the more merchants needed ways to survive loss. A single shipwreck or robbery could destroy years of work. Out of this danger came practices that resembled insurance. Traders and financiers developed agreements that shifted or shared risk in return for payment or expected profit. Maritime commerce was especially important because sea journeys could be lucrative and terrifying. Storms, pirates, hidden reefs, and political conflict threatened cargo at every stage. Risk contracts allowed merchants to act boldly without carrying the entire danger alone. These arrangements required careful wording and serious trust. They also pushed commerce toward more advanced financial thinking. The idea was simple but powerful. Disaster might still happen, but it did not have to crush one person completely. Medieval markets and trade routes therefore helped nurture concepts that later became central to modern business. Fear, handled cleverly, became part of the price of expansion. Marketplaces helped spread fashions faster than isolated villages could. A market gathered people who did not all live the same way. That made it a powerful channel for style. A villager might see a new cut of sleeve, a different belt fitting, a brighter dye, or a fashionable head covering worn by someone from town. A craftsman might notice what wealthier customers were requesting. A young person might return home with a small object that changed what others wanted. Fashion did not need printed magazines to travel. It moved through eyes, imitation, conversation, and purchase. Markets accelerated this process because they concentrated novelty. They made comparison easy. People could see what others valued and decide whether to follow. Even modest items could carry new taste into the countryside. A ribbon, buckle, cap, or piece of dyed cloth might signal that the wider world had arrived. The marketplace was therefore not only a place of supply, it was a display of possibility. New goods could change local tastes within a single season. Desire can move quickly when people encounter something unexpected. A new spice, fabric color, tool style, food preparation, or decorative object could attract attention almost immediately if it seemed useful or prestigious. Merchants watched these reactions closely. If a product sold well, more might appear at the next market or fair. Neighbors noticed what others bought. Households discussed whether the novelty was worth the cost. Within a season, a thing once unfamiliar could become desirable. This process made markets engines of cultural change. They did not only respond to taste, they created it. A seller introducing a new good was testing the imagination of customers. Sometimes the product failed and disappeared. Sometimes it entered local habit and reshaped demand. That is one of the most fascinating powers of the marketplace. It could take an object from elsewhere and, through repeated buying, make it feel like part of ordinary life. Medieval markets were engines of town life, law, travel, and change. To understand a medieval market is to understand far more than shopping. It gathered farmers, craftsmen, merchants, officials, travelers, animals, tools, food, money, and rumor into one charged public space. It made authority visible through rules and punishments. It connected rural production to urban need. It carried distant goods into local hands. It gave ordinary people access to news, choice, and contact with strangers. It could enrich a town, support a household, expose a cheat, or shift a fashion. Every stall stood at the meeting point of many forces. Weather, roads, law, belief, reputation, and risk all shaped what happened there. The market was not a background detail of medieval life. It was one of its great organizing machines. Week after week, it taught communities how to exchange, judge, trust, and adapt. In its noise and bargaining, we can hear a whole society learning how to move. And so, our journey through the world of medieval markets comes gently to a close. We have walked through streets that filled with voices on market day. We have followed merchants along difficult roads, watched officials measure bread and cloth, and seen how a simple stall could carry the weight of law, trust, and survival. We have glimpsed the great fairs where distant goods changed hands, and the smaller town markets where eggs, herbs, tools, and gossip moved from person to person. These places were never only about buying and selling. They were the beating heart of medieval life. A market could feed a family, build a town, protect a traveler, or spread an idea from one valley to the next. It could smell of fresh bread, warm animals, wood smoke, river fish, and damp wool. It could ring with bells, bargaining, cartwheels, and the steady murmur of people trying to make a living. And now, the market day begins to fade. The stalls are folded away. The last coins are tucked into purses. The road grows darker beyond the town gate, and the streets settle back into stillness. If you enjoyed this gentle journey through history, you are very welcome to like, subscribe, or leave a thought below. It helps others find their way here too. And if you happen to still be awake, there will be another calm history video waiting on the screen for you. But for now, there is nothing more you need to follow. Let your shoulders soften. Let your breathing become slower. Let the noise of the day drift further away. Picture the marketplace at dusk, with the last lanterns glowing and the old stones cooling under the evening air. The crowds have gone now. The work is finished. The town is resting. And you can rest too. Sleep well, and good night.